Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Speaking of doing the wrong thing, I know I say this quite often, not that often actually, give myself a break, but I don't want anybody to ring me in the next hour. I can't really keep it up for an hour, so I don't want anyone to ring me in the next 20 minutes or so, because I don't want Sadiq Khan to be right when he warns of another Windrush-style scandal hoving into view on the United Kingdom's horizon. So I'm going to describe what Sadiq Khan has identified, and I'm going to ask you whether he is describing a situation you are familiar with or have gone through. And hopefully no one will ring me. Do you see what I mean? Because if I'd sat here 6 months ago and said, oh, there's an article in the Guardian, oh, no, this isn't going to work. Well, maybe it is. So if I'd sat here 6 months ago and said, oh, there's an article in the Guardian about a woman who came over with her parents during Windrush, and she's been here for 50 years, paid tax and worked and contributed and done all of that, and it turns out that she's facing deportation. And I would have said 6 months ago, that must be a really weird anomaly, right? This is some bureaucratic snafu. There's no way that this is systemic or deliberate or an inevitable upshot of a hostile environment policy that treats everybody as guilty until they can prove they're innocent. So you end up becoming, quotes, an illegal immigrant, end quotes, if you fill in your tax return wrongly, or misunderstand the paperwork. This is what has been happening, and I understand, I think, better than I ever wanted to, just how deeply the country is divided along the lines of caring and not caring. I don't care. A significant number of people will say, something that really crystallised, didn't it, after the Grenfell Tower tragedy. Significant portion of our population are not what you would call humane. They do not look at other human beings as their equals. Bizarrely and almost ironically, it's usually quite stupid people who've been persuaded that they're superior to others. I guess you have to be quite stupid to buy into that kind of ideology. But if Grenfell taught us anything, apart from the callousness of a certain type of politician, it taught us that the portion of the British public can be persuaded to hate on others for no real reason other than difference. That, as I've said to you 1,000 times, is how Holocausts happen. But I guess we've all woken up to the fact in the last few years that Holocausts happen. They're not historical anomalies. They're not weird sort of exceptional circumstances. They happen when populations are primed to start hating completely innocent neighbours for completely spurious reasons. Just in the right circumstances, it can happen. So the reason I mention that is some people don't care about Windrush. They don't care about the fact that it's deliberate. They don't care about the fact that there was no earthly way that Theresa May's policies could have been implemented without catching up loads and loads of innocent people in that net. It could not have unfolded any differently from how it has. And I accept the existence of people who don't care, because you're not black, or your mother didn't come here on Windrush. There was a woman on Fox News yesterday, I can't even remember her name. It's a Scandinavian name, and she's one of these sort of go-to so-called alt-right commentators, and she was talking about people coming here who can't speak the language and we don't want them. Sort of imagine what it says at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, and then translate the polar opposite of what it says, you know, bring me your tired, your huddled masses. So she's all over Fox News. These dreadful people on Fox News. And British people getting paid to tell lies about their own country now on Fox News, which is quite a remarkable development. And they've checked out her family tree, and it turns out she's got a hat full of grandparents who came here, one of whom had been in the country, been in America for 30 or 40 years and was still registered as not having learnt the language. So there's always a hypocrisy at the heart of these people. Always. I just took a moment there to acknowledge their existence. People who don't care about their neighbours, their friends, their teachers, their nurses, their doctors, their accountants, their drivers, people who just don't care if they get treated abominably. That's the foundations upon which an awful lot of this ideology is built. Well, I do care, actually, and I don't know why I care. I suspect it's something to do with the way I was raised in the Christian church, but I care. I was taught to care. I hope I would have cared even without being taught to care, but I care. And if people in this country are currently frightened and cowed and persecuted, everybody should care, because if it's being done by the government, and if the last hour talking to Turkish dissidents and citizens taught us anything, it taught us that governments can do this sort of thing, then everybody under that government should care as well. So what is the latest development in this story? Young people born in Britain are being denied access to education or employment because of £1,000 fees needed to gain citizenship. The Mayor of London has warned that there could be another Windrush-style scandal on the horizon, and he's called for these astronomically high fees to be scrapped. So what we're talking about mostly is young people who arrived in this country as babies with their parents or as small children, or who were born in this country to parents who'd come from elsewhere, and they do not realise, and this is incredible, because I don't know why, and I'm really not being holier than thou, I promise you, I don't understand how anyone can hear what I'm about to say and not imagine how it would feel if it happened to them. I just don't get that. That's what empathy is. Empathy is very, very simply imagining what it would be like to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. I grew up thinking everyone could do that. Even until my fifth decade, I thought everybody, apart from full-on sociopaths and psychopaths, I thought that everybody had the capability simply to imagine what it would be like to be somebody else and to frame your reaction to how that person was being treated by imagining it happening to you. You could, if you wanted to, describe that as quite selfish. I'm not by nature altruistic or good. I'm just seeking to protect myself from that same fate at some indistinct point in the future. Why are you in favour of human rights? Well, because I'm a human. And if you take rights away from that human, it could be this human next. It's so logical. Even when I read the Daily Mail columns attacking human rights, there's still a little bit of me that thinks, you're just doing it for money. Deep down, you know it's true that human rights are a good idea because they protect all humans. And if you introduce legislation that distinguishes between humans according to their origins or birth or whatever it may be, you undermine humanity itself. But this is a profoundly unfashionable position to be in. So when I read this, I imagine it happening to me. You get to 18, it has never crossed your mind that you're anything but British. This is the important bit. This is home. This is the only home you've ever known. You've gone through school. Your parents go to work. You're part of the system. You're embedded. And then you get to 18 and you apply for higher education and you're rejected because you have never formalised your citizenship. This means you can't access funding or student loans. And without what is called settled status, a university could class you, if they wanted to, as an international student, which means you'd have to find tens of thousands of pounds to go to university at all. Now, if you're not applying for tertiary education, you could make this grim discovery when you try to rent a home or a flat. You could make this grim discovery when you sought to access healthcare as an adult, or open a bank account, or start a job. In 2007, and this is why I wonder whether people are... If you found out your status here was weak, and you'd spent your whole life thinking it was the same as everybody else's, let's use me as an example. You'd spent your whole life thinking your status here was the same as mine. You tried to rent a flat, or go to college, or open a bank account after turning 18, and you discovered that it isn't. Your status here is much, much weaker than mine. I had it explained to me this weekend that the reason why people don't then go and shout it from the rooftops is because they're frightened of what happens next. And when you read, as we have done, and when you speak, as we have done, to people who have been stuck in Jamaica, or who have faced deportation, or who have had their lives turned completely upside down, or who have been denied medical treatment, I think you begin to understand in a way that I never understood before. I think you begin to understand why people hide, why people don't come forward shouting from the rooftops, why people aren't screaming the odds, because they don't want to draw attention to themselves, because they've just discovered that their right to be here is in some way compromised. So, has it happened to you? 0345 606 0973. In 2007, 159,000 Londoners aged 24 and under were affected. Sadiq Khan is now keen to see how this issue may have been affected by these immigration so-called restrictions that have rendered innocent people guilty and seen completely blameless citizens of this country facing deportation and incarceration. The point is, of course, that you can fix it, but it will cost you £1,012. Okay, that's the cost for a child to register as a British citizen. If you're an adult and you want to nationalise your citizenship, it'll cost you £1,330. So I don't know whether or not you can lay your hands on £1,330 by tea time today, but most of the people in this country today can't. Am I describing a scenario that you're familiar with? Has it got worse since 2007? Is Sadiq Khan correct when he warns that this could be another Windrush-style scandal hoving into view on the horizon? Hit the numbers now. You will get through, okay? And I kind of mean it when I say I hope nobody rings me, but equally, it wouldn't necessarily prove that the problem isn't there, because A, not even I'm cocky enough to presume that the whole world is listening to me, and B, you might be ashamed and embarrassed. This is one of the things I've learned from Windrush. I met some people over the course of the weekend I'm hoping to introduce you to at some point, but at the moment they're not ready to go public because they are... I met one woman, and she won't mind me describing what she does, a successful barrister who has not been directly affected by the Windrush scandal, but as someone with roots in Jamaica, it has changed her very sense of self. This notion that equality was established in Britain, she has been robbed of that belief. She has seen people with a background similar to hers being treated fundamentally and formally as inferior to people with a background similar to mine. And it's hit her for 6. It really has, on an existential level. And I don't know that we'll ever, those of us who are not directly affected, fully understand what that feels like. So that's why maybe you won't want to tell me the story, but I would urge you to do so. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Has the cost of citizenship prevented you from essentially formalising your status in this country? 0345 6060 973. The warning is that another Windrush-style scandal could be on the horizon, and it breaks my heart to say this as a proud Brit, but the country will split along the lines of those who give a monkey's and those who don't. And sadly, those who don't are much better represented in the British media these days than those who do. I want to know whether it has affected you, whether or not you have discovered, as you reach your majority, that you're not actually a fully settled British citizen. You'd always presumed that you were, but you've discovered that if you want to be, you're going to have to find over £1,000. And I gather a few people are ringing in who are European Union citizens, responding to stories like this and indeed to the Windrush scandal with fears that you may be forced to endure similar if and when the government led by strong and stable Theresa May finally comes to some sort of conclusion about what your status will be after Brexit. I will talk to you, but I want in the first instance, I think, to talk to people who have made this discovery themselves. The number you need. My phones are really, really busy, but I'm best not putting anyone through yet, which means she's just trying to pin down the details. I've got 2 phone lines free if you're absolutely on the page of this story. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's the nature of the discovery that must be so jarring. The idea that you have gone through your life perfectly normally, presuming, that you're as British as the next person, and then when you apply to university or to open a bank account or anything like that, it turns out that you're not. It's not as bad as Windrush, but if you can't find £1,000 to formalise this status, I want to know what happens. Tasha is in Tottenham. Tasha, what can you tell us?
It has been happening to me.
Go on.
My child is born here. She's 8 now, and she's at school, but she's not seen as a British citizen.
Why not?
Because according to the solicitor, I wasn't born here. So she has to get my nationality, which was which is pretty hard, because I just feel like she's seen as a second-class citizen.
When did this start happening? When did you make this discovery?
Well...
So you registered her birth here?
Yes.
And
She was born at Whittington.
And so you just presumed that she was...
That she was all right. But then I had to go and sort out my status.
Yes. Why? Why did you have to do that?
Pardon?
Why did you have to go and sort out your status?
Oh, because there were certain... I just had to, regularize.
Yes, I understand. So you wanted to apply for settled status?
Yeah, settled. Yes.
And when you did that, you discovered that your daughter...
The solicitor said that she's not seen as British, so I have to apply for her as well.
So that is £1,330 for you.
It was last year, so the application fee was £811 each, which for me and for her, plus 500 each for the NHS surcharge. That's £1,000.
Yes.
And then I had to pay for the biometric card, which I haven't gotten yet. That's over here now, which was £19.20. Plus, I had to pay the solicitor, not everything, but not all of our fee until everything comes through. But it's over here. I'm still waiting, and I had to find letters. Go to our school for letters that she's been there. I had to go to my GP as well to get a letter to say that I was pregnant, and I had to go as well to our nursery to get a letter for her to say that to send to the Home Office to say that she's been here.
And this is the hostile environment. You have to spend thousands of pounds to formalise a situation that you thought was already established.
Yes.
How has it affected you? How has it made you...
Oh my God, I can't even tell. It's like I'm walking around in a daze. She keeps, right now she's asking me to have because I'm not able to work. I'd love to, but I can't work at the moment or anything. So that is affecting me mentally. I feel depressed some of the time. Sometimes I kind of shout at her,
yes.
Because I feel like everything is just building up. I'm just trying to sort myself out, and it's just like holding me back. I feel so pressured, and sometimes I'm in the house. I don't really want to come out. I just drop her to school and go and collect her. And
when did it start happening? When did the process begin? When did you realise that the situation was worse than you thought?
When I went to the solicitor.
And is this a result of the new environment? This is the thing where people...
I think everything, yes, from, as you said, from 2007, just like, until... Actually, I think everything just starts getting so... When Theresa May got in, she went in and she turned the Home Office upside down. Because usually the solicitor said it wouldn't be £800 for her. It would be $300, but since Theresa May got in, she doubled it. Make it the fee. Make the fee.
Well, this is the thing. This is the conclusion I'm still a little bit reluctant to arrive at, because it's too bleak, it's too grim, that she knew what she was doing. So what she was going to do was make it so complicated and so expensive that lots of people who had every right to be here would not stay here, because establishing their right to stay here was too complicated and expensive. And it sounds like you came quite close to that yourself.
Yes, because if it was for friends, good friends, I'm sure I would probably don't even apply for her.
And
apply for myself as well.
Do you feel... Can I ask you a word? I'm going to say a word, and you tell me whether it's right or not. I want to preface it by saying I don't think you have absolutely anything to be ashamed of, but has this made you feel ashamed?
I feel ashamed, I feel embarrassed, I feel everything, I feel really low, I feel like inadequate, I feel like,
Go on.
I'm born, it's like, you're born in this world, and it's like, you feel low. You feel like you're not meant to be here.
Yes.
You know, is that, you know.
I do. You've got to stop saying you know. I do know. I know.
even my child sometimes, I think, I'm thinking maybe it was a mistake, Kavita.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, never.
Even sometimes I look and I come back to my senses and
Yes. Well, you hang in there. How much of the money did you find? How much, have you sent it off yet?
My friends helped me out, and
well, there you go.
I think so, but Dad, she still haven't settled yet because I'm still waiting for that biometric card, and
the biometric card. Yes, okay.
Yeah. Pardon?
Yes, sorry, I didn't know which card you were talking about, but yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, so that's because that price must have gone up because it's 1 year now, which she's still not seen as a British citizen until she has that.
Until you send off all this money, and that does. I mean, it does seem that they're just sort of milking people of money in the most egregious ways imaginable. 11:28 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. One swallow does not a summer make, and I don't know, without speaking to Tasha in more detail, whether or not she fits into precisely the category that Sadiq Khan is describing. But I do know that many people listening to this programme, if they were suddenly told that they had to find £1,330 for every adult and £1,012 for every child in their family, simply to formalise a status that you thought you already enjoyed, an awful lot of people listening to this programme would struggle to do so. And again, I mention this because I don't want anyone to think that they're not noticed. I appreciate that a significant portion of this country doesn't care, and that's fine. I can't change you or fix you or anything like that, but you'll allow me, I think, to ignore you. It's coming up to 11:30, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where I want you to tell me if you've discovered that your settled status was not a given, but was in fact currently up for sale to the tune of over £1,000 for every member of your family. It's 11:30. In the next hour, I'd like to talk about cultural appropriation from the position of not really knowing what it is. I'm not. Thankfully, I'm sure it will happen in the next few years because I turn 50 in 4. I'm not yet fully gammoned. I expect the gammonisation process to increase as I get older. But at this point in time, I don't get angry about things unless I understand them. So I don't get angry about people claiming that the Israeli winner of the Eurovision Song Contest has culturally appropriated her kimono from the people of Japan. I'm a little bit confused. Equally, I was confused when some students got very cross about a Mexican restaurant giving away sombreros because they felt that it in some way, I don't know, they felt that it culturally appropriated Mexican national dress. And I like talking to young people about the things, God, that sounds so patronising. I love talking to my children about the things that they consider to be unjust. And it's really interesting to watch a kind of social evolution in place. Having said that, just as I accept some people don't care about seeing their neighbours suffer unduly at the hands of a government, some people don't care about understanding stuff before they get angry, which again is fine. This is my new tolerant self. I expect it to last until about Wednesday. There's room for everybody. I acknowledge your existence, but I ask you to respect my right to ignore you. So, in the context of cultural appropriation, I think it's a bit daft. But I'm not going to invite you to call me and tell me how angry you are about something that neither of us really understand properly. I'm just going to try and work out, objectively, calmly, and hopefully lightheartedly, whether or not it is daft, or whether or not we can draw a line between so-called cultural appropriation that's valid and allegations of cultural appropriation which are a bit daft. And I suspect that accusing the Israeli winner of the Eurovision Song Contest of culturally appropriating a kimono is daft. What I haven't managed to do on this programme yet is work out whether or not we can make it sing as a phone-in topic without pretending to be outraged by the people who are outraged. You know, like students who want to take down pictures of Theresa May. Oh my God, I'm so outraged, and so are 10 million other readers of the country's best-selling newspaper. How many people were involved in the original protests? About 30? Right. So millions and millions of people are outraged by the actions of about 30 people, but we're all buying into the idea that it's the 30 people whose outrage and taking of offence is the problem here. Yes. But there's millions on your side, and you're much, much angrier than the... Yeah, but it doesn't matter, because it was a picture of a Theresa... Fury, Gammon. Back to the next Windrush. That's coming up after 12, that conversation. I just want to know how you found out that you weren't quite as secure in your home country as you thought you were. Yvonne is in Croydon. Yvonne, what can you tell us?
Hi, I'm just calling based on following from your recent caller. Sorry, it's my first time calling, so I'm a bit nervous.
Don't be nervous, only me. It's only me.
So I first found out, my mum brought us here when I was 11 years old, and 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, the police showed up to say we didn't have the right status, we didn't have the right papers to stay here. Of course, my sister was 20, I was coming up to 18, and it was all new. It was crazy madness. And 2 weeks in the detention centre, they finally let us out and just said, okay, you can go back. No explanation, nothing. We just came back to our property. A week or so, we were evicted from our property. Then my sister got a place to look after us. And to cut the long story short, I've never been able to go to university because I didn't have the right papers. And then in 2002, after I had my first daughter, wrote to my MP, who helped me then in Lewisham to get indefinite stay. But from getting indefinite stay, I've never been able to actually naturalise us because I've never had the money to pay for because I was a single parent, and I've never had the 1,000 odd. Plus, finding out that my daughter, who's now 16 years old now, could not get papers because although she was born here, and
she was born after 1983. People keep telling me that 1983 is a key year.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We'll find out. It must be one of the Immigration Acts. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that a significant number of people could get their hands on £1,000 in the blink of an eye, and it would be more if it's a family issue. You need to find that sum for everybody. So how is this going to affect your daughter then?
Well, she's never been able to travel. All the school trips outside the UK, she's never been able to do them because I've not been able to raise £800 now for her, which has always been, or £1,000 plus. So we've never been able to travel anywhere outside the UK. And I've got 3 other kids now, but none of us can go, of course, and unless I've got the documents for myself and my daughter. Although they can qualify to be British, she does not qualify.
So £5,500 you'd need to find in the short term. I mean, and it will limit her ability to go to university as well, will it, and things like that?
No, because she's got indefinite to stay now.
Okay. And how much did that cost?
I had to pay, how much was it at the time? I can't remember. It was in 2002.
Oh, okay. Because my friend Juan's just got it. He's just got his, and it cost him £2,295.
No, I don't think it was that much back then. It was about 500 odd around that time.
But this is money that is being extracted from people who are very often among the least wealthy people. You know, people. How does it feel to spend decades before people actually realise that this is going? Do you see what I mean? The idea that it should, if it happened to me, then I'd be shouting from the rooftops, but you felt that you couldn't, or at least that no one would listen if you did.
No, I mean, I've written so many letters, and no one, unless a few of us will stand up to say enough is enough, it will always carry on. You feel like you don't have the right to say because you're not a British citizenship, so you don't even have that right to shout from the top, like, who are we to shout? We're just kind of like renting in this land. We're not actually supposed to raise our voices on the rooftop just because we want British citizenship. But my daughter's doing well, but it's just frustrating. It would be nice for us to go back home at least to visit. And when I even requested for my passport, they said they lost my passport, so I couldn't even have a Ugandan passport, which I'm originally from. Right. But because the Home Office had lost those documents.
So you could end up almost stateless.
Yes, basically.
Yvonne, I hope there's light on the horizon. You're actually in a better position than many, but no one would want to go through what you have gone through, and I wish your daughter well as well. 11:41 is the time. Nab is in Manchester. Nab, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. You're right. I was just hearing your conversation. I was like, although it doesn't match quite much with Sadiq Khan to it, but obviously we have been a victim of the hostile environment by the Home Office, because we have been here in this country for over 14 years now. We have been working, paying tax, and we are highly skilled migrants, obviously, because we came in and we've got those skills.
Who's we? You and your husband?
Yeah, it's
okay.
a family application that got refused in 2016, mainly because there was a tax discrepancy.
Wow. Just pause, because you're living this, so you know it inside out, and I've swatted up on it recently, but a lot of people listening won't be aware of this. This is the hostile environment. If you fill in your tax return incorrectly, even if it's not your fault, even if it's a genuine error, or if your accountant did it on your behalf, that can be used as grounds to reject your application for permanent settlement.
That is correct.
Can I ask what the discrepancy was?
Yeah, it was just an accountant's mistake, which he made us aware, and we amended it before, way before the application for settlement. But then the Home Office termed us undesirable to stay in the United Kingdom, and they raised issues on our character and conduct, although we had been here, living in here for 4 years.
So they tried to portray you as criminals, as people who had deliberately sought to mislead the tax office.
Yeah, that is correct. And then, our children, who have been here 9 and 7 years old now, we've got a 3-month-old daughter now as well.
Yes.
And what is their fault? They always thought they were British. They've enjoyed all the rights as a British citizen in this country, and they don't even know the other country from where we migrated to be their home, because they've spent all their life here.
I hesitate to ask you this question because I think I know the answer. Are you then currently living under threat of imminent deportation?
That is correct, because when our application got refused in 2016, we made another application to make sure that they don't brand us illegal and deport us.
Yes.
And we spent about £18,000 just in, application fees. So all our savings went there, and then obviously we lost the right of work because they said the application, obviously because the previous application got refused and we made a new application, so we lost right of work. So now we are living in this country and selling our valuables. Can you imagine living in a country like UK and being under such a threat?
No, I don't. And obviously I haven't got the wherewithal here to go over everything you've told us with a fine-tooth comb, but in a nutshell, you and your family are facing deportation to a country your children have never lived in because of a mistake an accountant made on a tax return.
That is correct, and which was already settled with the government department that was responsible for dealing with the return.
And I am aware of other people in the same situation as you, but I've only read about them.
Thousands of migrants that are facing the same issues, and that is...
I prefer the word humans, if you don't mind. Thousands of humans facing the same issues.
That is correct. Basically, to be honest, I think that immigrants and human is a different terminology to the Home Office.
Yes, I do too.
It feels really bad now, because I've been living in this country thinking that's my home country, but then suddenly you are on the verge of deportation. It is just totally hostile. It is horrendous.
How scared are you? I don't want to make you feel worse than you do already, but I spoke to somebody during the Windrush story a couple of weeks ago who described... It was a woman in her 70s with cancer whose son was facing removal, and they described sort of every knock on the door makes them frightened.
That is correct. Every phone call, every knock on the door thinks we are on the verge of deportation. Anytime we could be deported back to a country where the children have no ties at all.
And can I ask what type of work you and your husband were doing before all this happened?
Well, my husband is an IT professional and a businessman, so he was giving IT services, and he was an IT contractor. I was working in a very high-profile. I was enjoying a very high-profile job at an airport. Obviously, I wouldn't like to disclose further information.
No, I don't want you to. I just wanted to establish the professionalism of the position you were in, and there was no. Oh, Nab, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you.
I feel really bad for my children. If we are deported, what are we going to go back to? What are we going to give our children? In a country like the UK, we were giving them all possible things we could have, as a parent.
Do you think there's any chance that this has happened by accident and that Theresa May will be listening to this now and be absolutely shocked and disgusted to learn that these sort of things have been happening to people like you throughout her tenure at the Home Office?
To be honest, after discovering all the stories of the same situation we have been put through, I think it was like a design mechanism to just meet the removal targets, because obviously they had to meet the removal targets, and then the Home Office started using their discretionary powers, not even thinking about how long an individual has lived in this country, how much they're...
Well, this is what the hostile environment does. It takes people, it treats everybody as you've been treated, and you have to jump through untold flaming hoops to formalise the status that you had taken for granted previously. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel for you and your family now? What would relief look like?
Well, we are in judicial review now, but obviously that won't change it either. But, this undesirable to stay in a country like the United Kingdom with this on us. We wouldn't be able to move our children to any other country as well if we are deported. God forbid. But then imagine, no other country would grant us visas because we have been branded criminals by the UK system. Because of a mistake
on your tax return that you didn't even know you'd made.
It was amended and already dealt, and HMRC, it was already settled with them. It was there.
But because there was a problem that needed to be settled on your record, even though it had already been settled, the original existence of the problem was enough to portray you as undesirable.
Yeah, and that is...
So anyone listening to this who's ever made a mistake on their tax return, that would be...
criminal in the UK system.
That would be the grounds for you facing deportation. Now, keep in touch. I hope there's better news on the horizon, and I'm afraid, failed completely in that hope of nobody ringing me. Far too many people ringing me, many of whom with stories like Nab's, although perhaps not quite as stark. It's 11:48. Jeremy Hunt, you'll remember, recently made a mistake, or his accountant possibly made a mistake regarding the purchase of 7 luxury flats that he's running as buy-to-let investments. And a few of you have pointed out he got promoted recently by Theresa May. If your accountant makes a mistake on your tax return and you do not have indefinite leave to remain, or your citizenship hasn't been formalised, they could deport you, and they will, even if you've got children who have never lived anywhere else. And this is precisely because of Theresa May's obsession with numbers as opposed to people. I said to you at the time when this Windrush story first gathered momentum that I cling to these hopes that things will turn out to be accidents or anomalies, because the idea that the woman who is now Prime Minister presided over a Home Office that deliberately and cynically created an environment that leaves women like Nab and Yvonne and everyone pretty much who's called me today living in genuine fear, that is terrifying. Luckily today she's proving her moral mettle by refusing to allow President Erdogan to use this country as a PRXO. No. Sarah's in Hounslow. Sarah, what would you like to say?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Sarah.
My name is Sarah. I'm listening to your conversation. I'm a first-time caller.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just calling regarding this immigration thing. I think it's wrong. It's not done well. It's not fair. It's putting people back into slavery and mental distress. I came to UK when I was 16, came for a visit, but unfortunately something happened. I never went back to the country I came from. And 10 years after I was here, 1997, I put an application through and said to them, can I just regularize my stay?
Yes.
And my case was refused. I went to the AIT, which is the court for the hearing, and my case was refused at the time I was pregnant with my first child in 1997. To 1998, I gave birth to my first child. We just turned 10 last month, and I put in for its registration as well, which I had to pay £1,012.
Yes.
And for the past 10 years, I've been going to the London Bridge Reporting Centre. When you go there, there's thousands and thousands of people queuing up to be seen. I go there every 2 months and just to report, to say I'm still in the UK, I'm still here. Nothing has been done on my case. I tried to put in an application. I was told at the time, when your son turns 7, you can put in an application for your stays to be regularized. But what the Home Office did, before my son turned 7, they sent a letter to say, when he was about 6.5, to say, can you let us know your situation? Then I said to them, I've got a child. And my case was refused again then because apparently they were aware of the child before the child turned 7. So when we went to court again, the case was dismissed again because they were aware of him before he turned 10. If they were before he turned 7, if they were aware of him after 7, I would have got my stay then. If it was after 7.
Gosh.
So I'm still under them. My son turned 10. Now I've registered him. I paid $1,012. I'm on my own looking after kids. I've got my 10-year-old, my 7-year-old, which I don't even know what I'm going to do to her yet. But I want to get my 10-year-old out of the way. So when he gets his British passport, then I can then apply as a dependent. Considering I'm going to be here for 20 years, I'm stuck in the middle. I cry every single day because you just feel you belong nowhere. I can't go back to where I come from because I haven't been there for 20 years. So where am I going to start from? And it's just really, really bad.
You see, what you are, Sarah, is a person, you see, whereas when journalists talk about immigration issues and when politicians frame policies, they forget that you're a person. They think you're just a number. Or if you are a person, then you're a person who is living the life of Riley. You're not crying every day and worrying about the future. You're probably living in a 14-bedroom mansion in Knightsbridge at taxpayers' expense.
No. No, I'm not.
I know you're not, but that's how we've ended up in this mess, by allowing liars in politics and the media to pretend that was the case, that's who you are. You're not. You're just a person doing what all mothers do, looking out for your kids, and you're living in a country where you are almost persecuted for doing so.
Yeah, and all I'm going to say to them is, this is not fair. I'm going to be here for 20 years. I've lost friends because I can't go out. I can't afford to socialize with people. So I'm just on my own, take my kids to school, come back home, and just keep hoping for one day this is going to be over and I can have a life. And my children ask me, they're only kids. They do not understand the situation. Mom, can we go to France? Mom, can't we do this? I can't. And because they're kids, they do not understand the situation. Last year, August, I went to my sign-in reporting centers, normal, and the lady said to me, I was threatened. She said to me, we're going to remove you and your kids. We don't care if you've got two kids. It's going to be difficult for us, but if you don't put in an application to the Home Office to pay $1,500 for myself, nearly £5,000. And I said to her, where am I going to get this money from? On what basis do you want me to put in an application? She couldn't say to me. I said, all you guys want is people's money. We don't even have the money to give you. You know.
What did she say? Because a few people in the office have almost admitted that they're being encouraged and paid to treat people really, really badly. There was one bloke who was filmed. It's my job to make your life hell.
Yeah. Well, I said that too, and she goes, that's for you to go and find out. Go to a charity organization. Go to your church. I said to her, I don't have anybody to support me to give me money. She goes, go to Citizen Advice Bureau. I went to Citizen Advice Bureau. There's no help. All they want from Citizen Advice Bureau as well is they tell you they've got associated immigration workers for you to go and pay them to help you out.
Paralegals and the like. I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch, is there? But if you need expert advice, I don't know where you're supposed to get it.
Yeah, there's no help anywhere. And I said that to her, I'm going to go out there, there's no help. She goes, that's none of my business. Go out there and look for help and put in an application. I didn't put in an application at the time as well because I couldn't afford it. And I said to her, on what basis? I'm going to put in an application. You're going to refuse me again, make me go to court again, spend the money I don't have. And I said to her, you know what? I'm just going to wait when my son turns 10, which is just turned 10 in April. I put in the application straight away.
And see what happens.
Biometrics. And see what happens. But I cannot live. I just feel I've lived 20 years of my life in hell. And I don't know how many people out there are living like this. It is terrible.
It is terrible. And I fear, certainly, maybe not in the context of the 20-year window, but certainly in the context of the last 8, it is quite deliberate. Sarah, I hope the future is better than the past, but I mentioned at the beginning how many people had rung in who are among the 3 million European Union citizens currently living and working, loving and thriving in this country, who hear these stories and remain almost 2 years after the Brexit vote utterly unclear about what precisely is going to happen to them, theoretically, after March of next year. You just need to listen to these stories and wonder whether you have faith in this particular Home Office, under this particular Prime Minister, formerly Home Secretary, moving heaven and earth to look after the rights of those 3 million. If you think that they will, I need to borrow your rose-tinted spectacles.